So, Dr. Wylie Tidwell III, welcome,
Yes,
welcome,
sir.
welcome to the Black Scholars Podcast, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Doing great, doing great. So, this is going to kick off a series on, which is obviously on everyone's mind every single day, which is the pandemic. And specifically for this podcast, we as Black and Brown educators and all educators and students and communities and stakeholders, the entire world is impacted by this. And so that's going to be the focus of the series is how is the pandemic impacting us as educators? But before we get into that, let's get into a little bit about you. So you're in Cobb County, and that's Atlanta, Georgia, or is that outside of Atlanta?
Yeah, it's directly outside of Atlanta.
Okay,
It's just I want to say the second largest county in Georgia. The largest county is going to be, of course, Fulton, which encompasses all of Atlanta.
okay, dope, dope. And how long have you been there, or is this born and raised?
No, I moved out here when I started my master's at Clark, Atlanta. I moved out here in '06.
Okay,
I met my wife right before I was about to move back to LA, and I've been here ever since.
okay, dope. And so with you being there so long, I'm assuming you enjoy it.
I'm getting more and more used to it.
Okay,
I live in this, like I said, I live more like in kind of like in the country area.
okay,
It's a lot quieter than I'm used to. I grew up in South Central LA, so I'm used to helicopters and just a lot of noise.
right.
This is a lot quieter than I'm ever used to. And in fact, whenever I go home, I get my best sleep, even though I live here because it's so quiet. I mean, it's nice. It's a good place to raise kids.
Yeah,
It's a lot cheaper than my home, so I'm not complaining.
yeah, absolutely. I understand. And so currently you're teaching ethnic studies and APUSH.
Yeah, right now I teach A-Push, ethnic studies, and I got a class of honors US as well.
Okay. And what does the APUSH stand for? Is that honors?
That's AP US history.
Okay, gotcha. And it looks like you've been doing it for a while, man. You're a veteran. 14 years in.
Yeah, I started off teaching college. My background is in both Black Studies and meteorology, so I started. My first teaching gig was actually teaching environmental science at a trade school, and I shortly after that left the National Weather Service because I really like teaching more than sitting in front of a computer coding. And I taught college for a little bit over 10 years. I was in a situation where I was a department head and I just didn't really get along with the dean. We really butted heads a lot, so I did not get my tenure. I got laid off, and then I had a friend that told me about the AVID program at a local school up here. So I was kind of at home, just writing, just looking at what my next move was going to be. I had a lot of money saved up, put away, so I wasn't as hungry, but it's getting to that point. And then I started doing AVID. I started thinking, this happened right after the election of Donald Trump, and just how we had to really counsel those kids the next day because at my school we had a small riot. Just a lot of conflicting issues. And shortly after that, I started getting into high school teaching. I had to get my teaching certificate, which was crazy. With 10 years and a doctorate degree, I had to go get a teaching certificate,
Right.
and then finish that. And now I'm still doing it. So yeah, I like it now.
So question for you. So Dr. Tidwell, with you teaching 10 years at the collegiate level and then coming down to K through 12, what was the biggest adjustment you had to make personally and professionally to get acclimated to K through 12?
My mouth. I could really say anything I wanted, almost anything I
Right,
wanted.
right.
Now I can't. And it's still even difficult now to where I have a lot more constraints. So that's why I really was so hard by pushing the ethnic studies class because that way it kind of allowed me to be myself and that whole. Because my main research and focus is always in Black studies and ethnic studies. Like my dissertation dealt with stigmas associated with incarceration of Black males, and then I wrote other papers talking about how it affects Latinos and Asian Americans. So I was very like kind of stuck in a little bubble with standards, and I kind of like that was my biggest like. I remember when I got started. I got started in January, which is halfway in the semester. The content wasn't the problem. It was the idea of how do I deal with an IEP, a 504, and how do I deal with standards. And I had no training on that, so I literally, and I had my first class had 15 IEPs for 504s together.
Wow.
And I was just like, and my teaching style was able to get it done. And I started learning. I knew a lot of the stuff they call with pedagogy strategies. I guess I always did this stuff. I just didn't know what it was. So the terminology, make sure I watch my mouth. I couldn't use profanity like I used to. I couldn't be as abrupt as I used to be.
Yeah.
I had to be a little bit more compassionate than I used to be. And then also just understand like all the different learning styles and stuff like that. So now I look back, and I probably had a lot of college students that had a lot of learning disorders that I had no idea about.
Right.
And when I started getting my gifted cert, that's when I started learning like about all these different things. Like, oh wow, and I started being able to talk to students differently. So even now, with my college students I teach online, I can see them a lot differently than I did maybe even 3 years ago when I started teaching high school.
Dope. Well, I do want to say welcome and thank you for coming down to K through 12. As you know, being a scholar yourself, there's not many of us that look like us in the classrooms or even in the schools. So definitely, thank you for coming down, man. And I think the numbers are still somewhere between 1% to 2%, depending on the source you're looking at for African American male teachers, specifically when you start talking about core classes or classes that are more academic focused versus like a PE or being a coach, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But, it's important that kids see us in these classes that require a lot of critical thinking and analytical
Most
thinking
definitely.
and reading and writing. So thank you and welcome.
And that was probably my other biggest thing is like I am really kind of trying hard not to coach just because I don't want to be put into that stigma.
Yeah,
but
man.
that you're a black male, you're a teacher, you're a coach. So
Yep.
I want to coach. Like my background, I played baseball, basketball through college.
Yep.
I want to coach, but then I also don't want to be put in that stigma because
Right.
it's so hard getting my students to call me doctor.
Right.
I know they call me coach in a heartbeat. So I'm just it's a hard fight to not want to do it, but then I kind of like you just said, it's not, and you're right, there's not very many of us, particularly those higher degrees. And then I noticed even in my time, I was talking to another assistant principal. There's even less that has like a PhD considered instead of an EDD.
Right.
So it's just very, very rare to have that. And yeah, it's crazy when you think about who we teach. Because like my school is predominantly like 75% free and reduced lunch. And it's just crazy how there's not very many of us there teaching.
Yeah. And I mean,
but I also understand why, because the last 3 years trying to get this teacher certificate has been hell.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And I was just now every day I'm like, why am I doing all this? I could be doing other things, even making more money.
Exactly.
But then I really like what I'm doing. But I mean, the process to get certified is insane. And a lot of my friends still teach college. Like, why are you doing this? Because I'm like, I actually like it. I mean, it's worth it.
Right.
But it's insane. It shouldn't be this difficult to get certified to teach.
So I know in Georgia they don't use the Praxis. What is the test company, or what is the series of examinations that you have to take to be certified there?
There's a lot of GACE exams you got to take.
Okay.
So like my degrees background is going to be in sociology and law. So I'm teaching history, but I had to make arguments why I could teach history because all my degrees was in, sociology and law. And they're like, well, that's not really history. I'm like, law is based off of history. So like I had to literally do a whole argument on that. And even right now, I can't technically teach government and econ, even though that's what my background is in. So I got to take a GACE exam. Okay. So you got to do that. I had to take the EdTPA, which was difficult because it's like, okay, I had to look for all these specific little things and do recordings. It wasn't hard. It was just difficult where it was time consuming. And then for me, I had to take a GACE entry exam, and I aced the writing part, I aced the reading part. The math through geometry, I have not looked at geometry since like 11th grade.
Right.
Like when I was in college, we took physics with calculus, and I'm sorry, but it's not that I miss geography. I had to go back and literally relearn geography, not geography, but geometry, because the test asked me for that, and I have yet to see where am I using geometry in my curriculums, but maybe $6,000 later, I got my teacher certificate now.
Well, again, man, we appreciate it, and I'm confident it's gonna all pay off. But I'm glad you're doing something that you love doing, man.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the topic at hand. So, when's the last time you actually seen your students? When's the last time you were in the classroom?
May 13th. Not May. March 13th. March 13th.
Wow. Wow. March 13th. And was that a Wednesday, if you can
Let me
remember?
go look at my calendar. I think it was a Friday. The reason I know that date is because our county kind of made us hold grades, and they're still trying to tell us what to do.
Right.
I want to say it was a Friday.
Let me see. Yeah, you're right. The
Yeah,
13th is.
Friday
Okay.
13th.
Yep. And the last time I saw my students was on March 12th. And
Okay.
on March 12th, here in Memphis, Tennessee, the major district, which is Shelby County Schools, had officially released a statement on the 12th saying that they were going to shut school down uh, because of the coronavirus for an additional 2 weeks. And I believe they were just coming off of spring break.
Wow.
And so for my district, which I'm out in Collierville, which is like a suburb of Memphis, my school district, we were going into our spring break, and at the time we hadn't officially said anything. It was kind of like that's kind of like the thing with the suburban school districts here. They didn't want to commit to, they didn't want to jump the gun. When in actuality, they should have jumped the gun. So I'll tell you what ended up happening. I needed a mental health day for that Friday, and so I
Okay.
actually
Wait,
called.
wait. You said you got a mental health day?
I took a mental health day.
I wish I could get that.
Well, I mean, I didn't. They don't call it a mental health day. I'm calling it a mental health day.
Oh, okay,
I
okay,
call
cool.
it
I was
sick.
about to
Yeah, yeah,
say.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. They should. You should just be able to take a mental health day. But yeah, I called out sick because I had a bunch of stuff going on, and I'm in grad school right now working on my admin's licensure, and I just literally needed a day. And you know how you kind of get like an inkling, like you like a spider sense that something's off, something's wrong. Something told me like, don't go to school tomorrow. Don't go to work. And so I legitimately called out. I said I need a mental health day. And the 13th, that's when everything came down, and they said they're going to shut the school down for an extra week after spring break. How has the pandemic impacted your school and your responsibilities as an educator? So I know you're at home, and earlier you were saying that you were working on lesson plans. So can you describe that for me? Like what's going on at home and connecting with your students?
All right. I am a lot different than some of my other colleagues, so I'm gonna speak briefly for myself. I work at a very fast pace.
Hmm.
So when we went out, all I had left was 2 weeks of material to be taught. I use a flipped classroom model, so I use a lot of the stuff that everybody's using now. I've been doing that since day one. So my students have always been online. We do all the lectures and stuff at home, and then we come to school and do like activities like play Monopoly to talk about the guildization, things like that. My district, similar to your situation, the 13th was our last day. 13th, 12th, but the 11th, we had a teacher, a shortened day to where we were supposed to have meetings. On that day is when our district basically started getting us prepared to be out of school. They was talking about, like they started throwing all the stuff about online learning, things like that. And a lot of us thought we was going to be out on the 12th because on the 12th is where we supposed to, make sure the students understood that we was doing stuff online. So like my students signed a waiver back in January about doing online learning. I was just saying, like, okay, I just told my students about what was going on. We just kept teaching. And I told them we probably won't be here after today or tomorrow. And then Fridays when they officially let us know. So then we was out for 2 weeks, and then our third week was supposed to be spring break. So my classes have been really kind of like straightforward, streamlined. We've been still doing the work using Google Classroom. I use a lot of Nearpods, vocabularies. I do video lectures. What I'm doing right now is stuff for my AP class because my AP class, as far as they test, they got changed this year because of COVID. So the whole formatting and style is different. But for like all my other classes, I just clicking buttons and submitting work because it's already done. But it's not stuff that my county has evolved. Like I know I did a PD earlier in the year talking about how to infuse hip hop using Nearpods. And now was something a lot of people like, okay, we need to go ahead and buy Nearpods, we need to buy vocabulary. And in hindsight, if we had that, it'd probably be a lot easier to do the digital learning. Because if I look at what my kids are doing, the teachers, they're getting better now because we've been out again since March 13th. But at the beginning, they were just trying to put together stuff. You could tell by the lesson plan they were just trying to throw stuff together. They didn't really have a plan, which for me is kind of odd because my background is a lot of online teaching. So we don't have a set LMS. We don't have a Canvas. We don't have a Blackboard. We don't have anything like that. And I'm hoping that now we do get that stuff. We do get the training for it because this will make this a lot easier. And the problem is, I know even in my department, a lot of my teachers, they use Google Classroom. But before I got there, no one even used Google Classroom but one guy. So I did a whole training, and 3 years later, they're now using it, so they're a little bit easier. But even the functionality is kind of bad because a lot of those same teachers, they use that as their blog and not actually having a blog. And, an LMS and a blog are two different things.
Right.
And trying to get them to get that much is difficult. And now I'm looking at it like this sense. Like I had a trainer. I had to move out of ethnic studies to take some other classes. I got somebody got promoted, so I'm trying to help this other teacher out. She's like, "Yeah, you go to your blog." She's like, "That's it. Was that your blog?" I'm like, "Yeah, Google Classroom is not a blog. That is a classroom. Kids,
Right.
Google Classroom."
Right.
So, our county really is big on having blogs, but they didn't. And I remember I was talking to people I know in the county, like, we need to get an LMS. We need to get like a Canvas. We need to get a Blackboard. Start implementing that.
Right.
It will save you a lot of money in the back end, and it will prepare you for stuff like this. And now this has happened, and now everybody is caught with their pants down, which is crazy because you live in the South. We have snow days just because of like a half an inch of ice or snow.
They shut everything down. Right.
It shut everything down. So it's like you see these things happening where you can still digitally teach our students, even if you have a half inch of ice day. So this is coming from the background of like teaching in college and universities where we've been doing this for like the last 6 or 7 years. Like since I started teaching college, I've always had an LMS. That's how I learned and got so good with LMSs. It's crazy how K-12, and I'm just speaking, I guess, for my county, that we don't have that. And I know some counties, they use Google Classroom, and that's great too. But there's like Blackboard and Canvas, and there's some other ones too. Those ones I like the most, and there's so many things you could do with. Like with Canvas, you can teach the whole class online. You can do video feedback to the students as far as how I give students feedback is better.
Right.
For us not to have that, I think you really see literally like a gaping hole that you got right now. Because now I just got an email now talking about a training on DBQs. I'm like, wouldn't it be easier if we just do all the stuff? You can make a classroom in like Canvas, and just people will do it, and you sign off, do a test, exit ticket or something on it. But it really showed how unprepared, and I would say how a lot of 20th century thought is still embedded into the school system.
Yeah.
Even though we have 21st century students, we still are teaching in the 20th century. But but in the classroom, they want to hold us up to, be engaged and do this stuff 21st century. But the background, as far as administratively, they're still 20th century working. As far as like I had my principal, she went out and she left pamphlets of stuff in the grocery stores. Well, if you have we the second largest county, we should be 1-on-1. Everybody should be able to get a tablet. Everybody should be able to get a computer, and then everybody just drop the information there, which makes things a lot easier. Now I do know Fulton County, I believe they are 1-on-1, and they have computers. I know other counties been actually having stop spots where they can go get computers. Like, why is it that our county is not doing that when we have all this money? And yeah, you can talk about the politics of it. I learned a lot about politics over the last 2 weeks. About I was actually offered promotion and I got stopped because my principal didn't want me to leave yet. So the politics of it is really crazy because it's not for the betterment of our students. And I look at my students that luckily a lot of my students, they have technology because I would have found out about it in January. But I also know a lot of other students that do not have it. They need to be able to give these computers out. It's not like we don't have the money. We just got to reallocate how we spend the money.
Right. If you think about, and I know, pretty much all states are doing their own thing now, but if you could think back to a few years back, we had this huge push for Common Core standards. And the whole thing behind the Common Core standards is we want our kids to be college and career ready, and we also want them to be able to compete globally. Well, if kids are going to be able to compete globally or even nationally, then they have to be able to utilize technology. And
Right.
To piggyback on your point, so I'm at a middle school that is 1-on-1. And a lot of those kids who have been in the district, they're used to being 1-on-1 probably since they were in 3rd or 4th grade. However, these kids still don't know how to properly use the technology for academic work. They can do the very basics, but I'm going to be honest with you, man. I know students who are very bright who don't know the difference between a Microsoft Word document as far as a file, so a DOC or a DOCX, and a PDF. I've got kids who don't know how to use OneNote. Um, I was the only teacher in my building who was using Google Classroom, since we're talking about LMS. And there's a lot you can do on Google Classroom, but of course it's nothing like you can do like with the Canvas or whatnot. But even on Google Classroom, there was so much teaching. I'm an English teacher. I felt like I was a computer science teacher or a technology teacher because I
Yeah.
had to teach them the basics just for them to be able to retrieve and submit and access documents. And it's like, you guys have had your iPads or some type of tablet for the past 4 or 5 years, and they've never
Right.
received the training. A lot of my colleagues, and I'll say this about my district, they push the use of instructional technology, but I think the
Mm-hmm.
push for the use of instructional technology, because we are an Apple certified school, is more so because they were going for that Apple certification. I do not
Okay.
believe that they actually are using the technology in a way that's pushing kids to use it, again, back to those Common Core standards, to be college and career ready. Kids know how
Okay.
to, access a document. They know how to annotate a document, but when it comes to creating their own, they struggle, man. They struggle.
Yeah.
The kids aren't interested in coding. Like, we have an entire STEM like program at my school. None of the kids talk about coding. None of them. None of the kids talk about coding. And it's like, what are they doing in there? Because I mean, just because this is the Black Scholars podcast and focus on Black and Brown educators, I feel comfortable in saying this. When I think back to Black Wall Street, and I think back to the Harlem
Yeah.
Renaissance, and all the way up to now, the lesson that we should all learn is that it's the producers and not necessarily the consumers who are in that top 1%, who are financially
Right.
free,
Right.
who are the leaders and the movers and shakers in this economy that we are currently in. And that economy will continue to evolve. It's all about the technology. And so I really want, like, my kids, and for every educator listening to this, we've got to push for our kids to be able to produce. They can watch, everyone right now is watching Netflix like crazy, right? Everybody with Netflix or
Yeah.
Hulu or whatever it is. Why don't we have like projects, so, project-based learning, where kids know how to use that technology? They know how to even write a script. Like, where are the producers? Who's creating this art? Who's creating these films?
Right.
And so there needs to be some major adjustments through the K-12 system. We knew that before. I do believe now, with the quarantine and the pandemic going on, that it's even stronger now. Like, we really, really see
Yeah.
it. Here's my concern, man. I'll share this with you and the listeners. My worry is that we've got this quarantine, we've got this pandemic, and so education. The kids are being homeschooled, whatever that means. And there's a lot of inequity there. Especially, you talk about kids with IEPs or 504s. Are their parents?
They're struggling.
They're definitely struggling. They're definitely
I had
struggling.
one student that had to go be committed.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I mean, this dude, he is smart, but his stress level is so crazy to the point to where it's like, when teacher next year, I am afraid of what's
Yeah.
going to happen. I know a lot of those teachers that come after me, they don't get some of the students like I get them. I had a student last year. He didn't have IEP, but he said, he was like how I was, and I grew up. I was really smart, but I was gonna be popular. I was gonna be known as a nerd, so I did
Right.
things to not be known as a nerd. But in the background, I got A's and B's.
Mhm.
He went to this other teacher, acted a fool. I'm looking at him like, have you talked to him? No, I just wrote him up like, you need to talk to him. Like,
Right.
you don't get how smart he is.
Right.
Just talk to him. Let him know that you're not gonna deal with that. And again, he had a B in my honors class. He should have had an A if he wasn't acting a fool the first month. But it took a month for him to get to me. I'm like, look, this ain't gonna happen. You got to do this X, Y, and Z. He was the best student I ever had.
Yeah.
So those same students with those IEPs and 504s, yeah, some of them really need the extra help, and them not. And I did my doctorate online. You doing stuff online, you teaching yourself, and
Right.
they need the confines of what a classroom is.
Right.
And I will tell anybody, and I know it's a different world. I was like, if you can do it high school in your first 4 years of college, do it the old school way to get it in, because teaching yourself is an art.
Right. Extensions. What if this thing goes into fall? What if we're still in quarantine in fall and we have to start the brand new school year for 2020, 2021 using distance learning? What's going to happen, man?
It's gonna be a disaster.
I know. I know.
It will be an absolute disaster. Because it is a disaster now. This is what I've heard stories like this. Whenever it's your last day of school, you ended. You could take that grade if you want to. We're not gonna make you be faulty because you can't get to technology of that nature.
Right.
If you can't get part of technology, okay, we can help your grade get up, but we cannot penalize your grade.
Right.
We can't take that away.
Right.
I can understand every rationale for that. You can't do that in a new school year though.
Right.
Because everybody started off at zero.
Yep.
So, and then it also takes about the value of learning. Let's be honest, a lot of our students, they need to be able to see that grade being a zero to help motivate them. I need to get this work in. I was that student. I
Right.
waited until the last 2 months of school to do anything because I knew I can get it up.
Right.
But that's because I did just a bare minimum. If you're gonna take out me doing a bare minimum, I'm not gonna be very motivated. I know my school district, we're out for the rest of the year, but the whole COVID-19 is just, and a lot of this is the political science part of me. There's something that's called the Eastern model. The Eastern model is about how you control the population. And one aspect of that model, if you instill fear, you can do whatever you want as far as changing policy.
Mm-hmm.
We already had 9/11. We got the Patriot Act.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got COVID-19. What we going to get after this? Something's dramatically going to change because everybody's so afraid.
Right.
And if you go back and look at this, I remember in my school, half of us was out in December. I was out for 2.5, 3 months. Two and a half, almost a month. Sick. Nobody knew what it was.
Wait, you said
COVID-19
December?
happened in 2019. No, December. My last day of school was December 23rd. I was sick from December 23rd to half of January, and no one knew what it was. It wasn't the flu. I tested negative for that. My wife was sick. My son was sick. One person did not get sick was my daughter.
Wow.
We had a trip to go to LA. We cannot take a trip to LA, which I'd love to go see my parents and get some good South LA food. We had to cancel that trip because no one knew what it was. We had and I said, like my wife has always been saying, if we go get tested, we probably get tested positive because we probably did have COVID-19.
Right.
And we probably got antibodies that no one's looking at.
Right.
So you have all these elements that no one knows. So we got to first get past this idea of like who has antibodies. How can we find? Because you need the antibodies to get a cure for it, or
Right.
at least a vaccination for it, whatever you call it. I can't think of that right now.
Yeah, that works.
But there is so much as unknown to where it's like I can legitimately see that happening. Where this summer is going to be very, very interesting, and it's so much that's unknown. I'm very curious to see what's look. By the end of June, I think we have a better idea.
Yeah, definitely.
But and like I know, it's the schools are not. I don't know. It's gonna be crazy, scary. A lot of the college universities are already saying next year they're gonna go online anyway.
Yeah,
that gives you a heads up for something's going on.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm afraid for our students because like if they don't have technology and they're not. I don't know. It's because they are a lot of them are disengaged, and like I have a lot of gifted and honors classes, and a lot of my students are disengaged, and these are the same students that would come to class. I can kind of push them to be engaged. They would do things.
Mm-hmm.
Now they don't have that extra push.
Right.
But this, I mean, if they do this, I mean, something has to be put in place, and no matter what, you got to get a group of people together. But my prayer and my hope is that group that gets together are not the same political people that's making decisions based on what they think is best without actually looking at what the students and the teachers can utilize to be the best.
So about the students. So what do you think with us not having school pretty much for the rest of the school year? We're not sure what's going to happen at the beginning of the next school year. What's going to be the long-term effects? like we kind of addressed it a bit. Um, those kids that are already disengaged, kids who are behind their grade level, whether it's in, you know, reading, you know, whether it's in literacy or if it's in math or, you know, what's going to happen to student achievement? What's going to happen next school year? Like, what's it going to look like?
I was talking about that because I know I teach, I got both the AP class and I may have a class that has an EOC or state exam in it. And I know next year I'm going to have to reteach everything more than I already do.
Yep.
Like, there's going to be so many holes. And I was just thinking about, like, students that's leaving me, they typically do pretty good in the 12th grade government econ class.
Mm-hmm.
I told the teacher, like, I'm sorry, y'all, but they probably, and mind you, my classes got through most of the material. We had 2 weeks left, and they're still going to be behind. Because, so now you got the summer coming up, which was already going to relax and lose information, but they've been on summer since March.
Yeah.
That's March, April, May, June, July. That's 5 months.
Yep.
Of total disengagement.
Yep.
And it's going to be very interesting to the point where I even wonder, are colleges going to give people passes even next year, keeping in mind what we're talking right now? Can you really hold with being all fair? Like, and again, I look at everything from the idea of utilitarianism.
Yeah.
Best decision that benefits the most.
Right.
And that's how I base everything. If it doesn't benefit the most, I don't agree with it. I think it was a great idea. Like, I know a lot of people don't like the idea how College Board this year, they changed up the AP exams. I thought it was a great idea. I thought it was the most college-ready test you could take. A lot of people was mad at that. I'm like, well, maybe this is something they should be start doing anyway, because now you're forcing them to take a college-level assessment. Next year, what are they going to do? Are you still going to do this again? But it's all about college admissions. How can you fairly grade students' GPAs with this in mind? This is going to be a hole in their GPA no matter what, because I know for a fact there'll be a lot of students that might get A's and B's in my class. If we was in class, they may not have got that grade.
Right.
Just because my expectation could be a lot higher there in the classroom, they could be right now online because I'm taking consideration. Right. I know one student fact, he has a computer, but his internet goes in and out. Yeah. I can't hold you accountable for missing that deadline. So the long-term effects, it's going to be the student station is going to be very far behind, and teachers got to be ready to be very compassionate and be understanding that your lesson plan means nothing, because you got to make sure these students are prepared to walk out this and be active people in society. Regardless, you're elementary, middle, high school, these people are all part of society. And then if you teach in high school like I am, these students are about to get ready to move into the workforce, even more so, or go to college and stuff like that. How are we going to get them prepared for what will happen there? And then the colleges, how are you going to understand that these students are coming in less prepared than they ever have before? Right. This is almost like unheard of since like even World War I, World War II, where you literally going to have a large set of population that is not going to be prepared to move to the next level. And it always has a counter, backlash to it. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think there's no PD that can get you prepared for this. There's no executive committee that can tell you what we're going to do to make this better. You can't, because it is something that's totally impossible to make better. And the people who's going to be hurt the most are going to be those students, because I struggled my first year of college and I went through my whole straight school year. Right. What are they going to do? They lost the whole 5 months. Right. And you talk about GPA, that 11th grade, that 9th, 10th, 11th grade is the most important part of your GPA. That 11th grade now has an asterisk by it. If you're right now going to 12th grade next year. So I feel bad for the seniors right now, because they're not going to be ready to go to college. They're not. Right. They losing ground. Right. They did not have. They missed out on their whole senior year. Yep. Then the 11th graders now, they're not going to be ready for college either. They're not going to be ready for 12th grade either. Right. How are we going to get them ready for it? Right. And then if we're not in school, we have to do stuff digitally. Let's say for instance, somebody gets wrong. Okay, let's make every student have a computer or iPad. Right. We just talk about how they don't know how to use it.
Yeah, that means nothing. Yeah, that means nothing.
So with it, I don't think, I'm just looking at the idea. Look at the idea of utilitarianism. There is no option that benefits the most here. No matter how you look at it, somebody's going to be hurt.
One last question I want to ask you: has this changed your career trajectory? Has this changed your? Have you been considering, like, am I doing the right thing? Have you thought about moving on? Or, I mean, you've done a lot to get here, so it's kind of funny me asking you this question, knowing what you've done just to be certified and come down to K through 12. But have you thought about doing something different because of not necessarily what's going on with K through 12, but because of the pandemic, and just thinking about, taking care of you and your own family? Because, that's number one before you can take care of the kids, is taking care of your own family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have actually been thinking more about actually moving up the ladder. When I first started teaching, I never wanted to be an administration again.
Mm-hmm.
I think every gray hair I got right now on my face is because of when I was administrator. And I got quite a bit of gray hairs and I'll probably be white in another 5 years. I got so many gray hairs. But now with all this, I started looking at this whole last year, because I had a new principal come in, and not a bad principal. It's just I am all about the students, because I can identify those students, because I was a lot of my students.
Right.
Growing up where I grew up and had to deal with my principal and being stigmatized as being just angry, just basically being a thug or being a gangster. I dress a certain way because I want people to look at me and say, okay, he must be a gangbanger. And then say, oh no, he has a doctorate degree in law. Right. Because it changes your whole dynamics, and it's just you see people's minds get blown. So now I'm now actually thinking about wanting to be in administration more than I have ever before when I came to K-12, because I was like, I ain't doing it. Yeah. Now I'm at least thinking about it, considering it. I already have everything for leadership. It's just a question of getting my state to approve it. Right. And if they approve it, I'll look more into it. I'm not taking no more classes for it, but I'll at least look at the classes I took. Yeah. And they do that, I'll be an administrator, because like you said, I don't think there's enough administrators that really understand our students from a cultural perspective. Just because you're a black principal does not mean you know how all black people are. Because there's different aspects of all our culture. There's more affluent black people, there's more poor black people. Because we may share the same skin color, don't mean we have the same culture. And I don't think there's enough of those particular principals that really understand the culture of their student body fully to understand how to make decisions for them. Because if that was the case, a lot of decisions that was made would not be made, never been made. Because, again, if you empower the student to be the center of the conversation, and not just 2 or 3, or the ones you see, or the ones you talk to, the whole overall student body, at least given the option, you'd be surprised what you might find out about them. And for me, I'm thinking more, okay, maybe that's something I need to look more into. I love teaching, I love the classroom, but I am more thinking about, okay, maybe I would consider being in leadership. Maybe I would consider being an assistant principal, or maybe even a principal, or even an academic coach. Academic coach is more so my idea, for the simple fact then maybe I could finally teach other teachers how to use technology in an effective and efficient way. Right. But I'm more open to it, to the point, even my wife, was talking about maybe buying a different house or moving somewhere different just to where I can be closer with school, because I was offered a job at another school. Still has a very high minority population, but just in a little bit more affluent schools, so I can get a difference of okay, this is how it looks to be in a very, very Title I, 75 to 8% free and reduced lunch. Let's go to another school that's not Title I, but you still have that very high population of black and brown individuals. Let's just see how that dynamic works. I got blocked. So the politics was okay, so I have to tell you before I apply that I'm going to apply? That makes no sense. I just want to apply for a job. I'll tell you I applied for it. Right. But it makes those kind of things. I think that if a teacher wants to leave, all right, good luck. Thank you for you did. I'm not gonna stop you, because I don't want to have I don't want to have a teacher's mad, right, and that messes up the whole culture you have at your school. Those are all reasons I'm thinking that, yeah, you know what, maybe I'll be more inclined to do this stuff. But if you had asked me this 2 years ago, you crazy, think I'm never gonna be an assistant principal or anything. You out of your mind. And I remember when I was hired, the guy was like, oh yeah, you should definitely be a principal. No, that's not me. I ain't doing it. And now I'm here. Yeah, at least I'm thinking about it.
Thank you for listening to the Black Scholars Podcast. For more information, go to blackscholarspublishing.com.